Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Nichols. I am the Chief Product Officer at Curvature. I have a technical background as well as a business background. So I've been in IT my entire career, and most recently in charge of our offerings here at Curvature. Today we're going to talk about IT ALM, or Asset Lifecycle Management, and the topic is kind of broad, and you guys came here this week to learn about IT asset management, which has a few subdomains: software asset management, asset lifecycle management, and hardware management. So I'm going to focus in on one simple question, and that is, how do you do more with less? We're all under constrained budgets, as I'm sure you guys are well aware. We're all trying to do all of these new innovative projects to support our businesses with the same amount of budget, with fewer staff, in a global marketplace. Those are real challenges. So we have what we think is a strategy, a way for you to do more with less. I also want to thank you guys. This turnout is amazing. So I appreciate your participation. And this is an open session. I've got a lot to get through, but if you have questions along the way, raise your hand. These lights are pretty bright, so if I don't see you, just stand up and jerk or wave or whatever. All right. So the question again, and we're going to kind of take a little fun with this. How many of you guys remember from high school something called the scientific method? Yeah, a little bit? Okay. So we're going to set up the theory. We're going to do some little background and research. We're going to do a little experiment, kind of, and show you the results. So I'm trying to be fun with it as we walk through some of these data points. So the scenario is, you're a customer, you're a mid-market enterprise, 2,500 employees, $1 billion in revenue, and many of you are much larger than this. We're taking this case because it proves the strategy. So it works even better at larger enterprise sizes. You're probably seeing net EBITDA or earnings in the 75 million range off of $1 billion, or you're doing better than that. And you're constantly expanding globally into new markets. You have challenges with either M&A or organic expansion. You might be in one of these vertical industries: transportation, healthcare. You can read. We think that this strategy applies across all verticals in any size company above about upper mid-market. So how many people feel like they're below this line? Okay, so it's pretty relevant to your company size, I would say. This is one theme we're going to play with today, and that's past, present, and future. So in the past, the IT architecture or environment had your standard stack. You might be in data centers with colo, you have your infrastructure, server, storage, network, operating systems, all your database, middleware. You can see all the stack on the left. Now that stack was 10 years ago or longer, has sort of morphed now. We're into a hybrid cloud world, and some of these topics in the middle, the present, maybe you're exploring, maybe you've already deployed, maybe you're looking at the cost and benefit impact of all of these. So whether it's going to a hyper-converged infrastructure maybe in the last 5 years, evaluating a hybrid cloud and migrating to on-prem, public cloud, and private cloud offerings and a mixture of those, whether you're looking at new security offerings and ways to harden your environment, your customer, and your private data, or you're looking for automation. All of these things are pressures on your budget and your people and time. And then that's only going to get more complex and more of a stress as time goes on. So in the next 10 years, in the future, and nobody's got a crystal ball, but we know that these new technologies, machine learning, Internet of Things, augmented and virtual reality, and many other technologies are going to influence the way we do business and have to support our users, as well as the budgets that have to go along with that. So I'm getting a little fidget. Does anybody recognize these terms? Are you dealing with these today? Yep. Okay. So the idea is we look to the past. What did we learn? We look at our present challenges and what we anticipate in the future, and our strategy really needs to combine all three of those elements. Yep. So, is this a problem that just some enterprises face, some companies? No. We pull from Gartner data the fact that infrastructure support alone, if you take out the rest of IT, is a $64 billion problem or challenge. So this is not something that's isolated to one industry or one company. It's also not a small issue. So any amount of money we can save on that $64 billion market helps us fund other initiatives in the right and in the future. So let's take a step back in time. If we go back 10 years, the way we're going to set up this strategy is show you two paths. The path you probably took and an alternative path. And we're going to examine how those relate and what the results with those would have been over the 10-year period. Now, we can't predict the future, but we're going to try to cast forward some of those savings and the impacts of them towards the next 10 years, and that hopefully sinks the message, makes the reason for why you would want to adopt a strategy like this. So I'm going to dive a little deep, and I'm a tech guy, so if it's too geeky or too far down in the weeds, just kind of wave me off. But this is probably what your environment looked like 10 years ago. You had a large corporate HQ with 1,000 employees on a campus maybe. You can see, I'm not going to read you all this, but this is all of the infrastructure or hardware that supported that one campus. Tons of routers, switches, firewalls, servers, storage, wireless access points. And again, this was 10 years ago. This is largely the same elements are in place, but maybe they look a little different or some of it's moved to the cloud. Then you have 5 regional offices with 200 employees each. These were your large offices, and another 10 or more branch offices or remote offices. So that gets us to a total head count of around 2,500 employees on a global basis with, 15, 16 sites. Now, many of you are much larger than this, or the sites may be less dense, but the same counts are going to apply. So in those regional and branch offices, we have more infrastructure, more assets and pieces and parts. You've got 10 routers, 20, 30, 40 routers. And your IT team and your budgets have to support all of this infrastructure. Again, 10 years ago, in your primary data centers, you probably had large core network switches, big blade servers. You probably have a lot of storage, maybe 4 or 5 SANs, storage area networks. And each one of them have hundreds of hard drives or solid-state drives. And that's where all of your company's information is stored, backed up, analyzed, reported from. You may even have some of this replicating to SAP in the cloud or something. Then most of you would have had a backup data center. So this is another location geographically different from the primary. And all of your data, or substantially most of it, was being replicated between the 2 data centers. I realize this is remedial for many of you. I just want to set up the scene and say this is what you were dealing with 10 years ago that sets our cost basis. So how familiar is this to many of you? Is this what it looked like? Is this too small, too big? Okay. So I'm hoping to establish relevancy, that you say, yep, that's what my environment and my IT team was working with, what my costs were based off of, and what I had to support and maintain. I'm not going to take you through this eye chart, but this is what the IT team would have said. Okay, all of that stuff, the hip bone connected to the knee bone, the router connected to the server and the SAN, all of that stuff had to communicate on a global network. That was then. So as we move forward, many of these pieces and parts, the elements of your IT environment are the same. They just might be put in different places. They're out at a provider, a SaaS provider, or they're at a cloud provider, or you might still be operating a lot of this on-prem, depending on your data security requirements, compliance, any of those needs. So if we take just the infrastructure slice of that, what I've shown you in that item inventory, and across that topology, that would have cost you $2.3 million to buy it one time. Now, you probably bought it over time and added to the environment as you grew, but the one-time purchase value of that entire infrastructure was a little over $2 million. That sound about right? Okay. So our theory has a few givens. I'm going back to that scientific method for a minute. Given that all of you need to purchase equipment. And maybe you're purchasing less or doing more with what you have, but everybody's got to purchase it. That equipment usually needs to be upgraded for whatever reason. The IT team or your environment needs new features, there's bugs, you want more ports, you're adding users, whatever the reasons, that equipment has to be upgraded. These purchases are traditionally a CapEx spend. Like you would rather buy it and amortize it, the cost of it, depreciate it, than you would lease it or rent it. Most companies make that decision. And fourth, maintenance always follows. It's usually attached to the purchase, and your teams are stroking the check every year to renew that maintenance contract with those vendors. And that carrying OpEx cost is one of the main pain points and one of the focus areas that we're going to go through to show you a better way. Now, what do you get with that maintenance? You get three things. You get access to software and firmware updates on this infrastructure. You can download the latest, greatest firmware or put it on the Cisco router or the EMC SAN or whatever it is. You get parts replacement or hardware replacement. When a part breaks, they're going to send you a replacement part, many times if you want, with a person to install it or replace it. And you get tech support. So your teams can call the experts at those manufacturers and they can walk you through troubleshooting, configuration advice, whatever it is. Those are the three things you're buying with that maintenance. So we believe that there were two paths that you could have taken, and there's still two paths available. You can take that traditional path, which means buy the hardware, take a 3-year support contract out on it, and renew that as long as you use it. Or you could go down our alternative path. We're going to walk you through what that looks like. So we're repeating the givens across the top here, and this is an eye chart. For those of you in the back, you probably won't be able to see all of it, and I'm not going to read it, but we'll point out a few elements that make the case. You'll get access to this, I'm sure, through your Gartner account. So we're calling this a 20/80. Many people would recognize that as a Pareto principle. It means that in life and in business and in everything else, there's usually a 20/80 split that you can work off of. So we're using a 20/80 here. We believe that 20% of your infrastructure and your environment really does need constant updates. It needs the latest, greatest. It's sitting at a point in your infrastructure or in your IT environment that it needs the features. And your team will really have to have that. But for the other 80%, we believe that those assets can be sweat and used a lot longer. Their lifespan's extended. If you look across the bottom axis, I thought I had a pointer, but I don't. You'll see when you buy it for the first year and into the 3 years, that's usually when those manufacturers are going to come back, the Ciscos and EMCs of the world are going to come back to your IT team and say, it's time for you guys to refresh. You need the latest and greatest, that stuff's old. And many times you'll see that stretch to 5 years. So the teams delay that refresh purchase, or we plan it on a 5-year depreciation, and those products then go end of sale. So the manufacturers purposefully stop selling that vintage of product, and they want to sell you their next generation product. This is a cycle. They do it on purpose to satisfy Wall Street, to make sure they're getting their product numbers. At that 5-year boundary, we think is where the decision point and the tipping point begins. They will then stretch that on to 7 years. So at 7 years, they typically stop supporting software maintenance or EOSW. They'll say, we're not going to support that vintage with that software on it. You need to upgrade, or you can keep doing it, but we're not going to go put out any more releases. And then at 10 years, they will call the last day of support. We will no longer support that piece of equipment. And this will be like Ford saying, you got a 63 Pinto, you can't drive it anymore. It's just too old. Now, what kind of sense does that make? And the same situation applies with a lot of these assets. They're still usable. They still do what they were intended to do originally. But the manufacturer is pushing you in a direction that serves them, not you. Does that make sense? How many people have felt this in real time? Yep. And it often angers or frustrates many customers. How dare you tell me when I should use, what products I should use and when I should replace them? So again, if you go back to what are the 3 things you get from a maintenance contract on any of this equipment? Well, this strategy still provides the tech support, so you can still call someone and get support on this equipment. You can still get parts replacement if anything breaks, as long as that thing lives. What you don't get is access to updates. So this is the first thing that you need to understand. When equipment gets to a certain age, and it's usually 5 years, they're no longer putting out updates. Usually the bugs and all the features come out in the first 3 years. In those years 3 to 5, you start seeing fewer and fewer of those. And by year 5 and on, there are really no updates. We asked a poll of customers for equipment that's at a 5-year vintage, how often do you update firmware? And the IT team would tell you anytime it's available, and we checked on how much it's available and how often they did it, and it's less than once every 3 years beyond that, across all customers in all environments. So that's pretty interesting. Now, you're worried about those updates. You want to make sure you have access to them, but the team's not really deploying them. They're not really using them. So is that really a concern? Finally, you can see some of the statistics up here over the course of 10 years. And this is what we want you to think about. Assets that were traditionally replaced every 5 years can now be stretched, their lifespan increased, their CapEx costs deferred for up to 10 years or longer, with minimal disruption, so you don't have to go through and interrupt your IT environment to replace and refresh. That equipment that's working stays working and nobody touches it. Think about a broadly dispersed environment. You might have 200 sites globally. Each of them has a router and a switch and a server and blah, blah, blah. But those things are branch offices, and they don't really need changes. If you don't touch them, they never go down. The confidence in the environment is high for the users at the end of the chain. And you actually have more value and less disruption out of not touching it and not refreshing it. So what are the results of taking this alternative path? And I'm going to break it down to dollars and cents for you. Now, I'm not going to read you, but on some of these timelines or some of the geopolitical, environmental, and technology influences that were happening at the time. So we'll start at the bottom. At 2007, you spent that $2.3 million. If you had taken an alternative path by using pre-owned CarMax style IT equipment and alternative support, your cost would actually have been $986,000 in orange. That represents a savings at that point of $1.3 million in just the initial purchase and deployment of that environment. This also takes into account the 20/80 split, that 20% of that environment is brand new, latest and greatest, what you need, and the 80% is a couple generations back or existing. What was happening in 2007? You had voice over IP going out, people wanting to do new phone systems. You had new speeds and feeds, and switching was being commoditized. All of these factors played into the price levels and some of the drivers that the teams, the vendors wanted to come to IT and say, you need to replace because you need support for voice, or the switches have commoditized. You should go on to this new platform. Let's go on up a few years. So 2011. Now this is right around the time when they would have been pushing for a refresh. Your IT teams are 4 years into that purchase. They want to re-up either a portion of it or all of the core, whatever, get to the latest speeds and feeds. You had a few things going on in the world. You had Metro Ethernet and Ethernet WANs coming out, so the providers wanted faster speeds and feeds. Your users wanted more bandwidth to the internet. Well, at this point in time, to refresh, again on a 2080, or sorry, just a straight, would have been $2.9 million more. So now I'm rebuying my entire Cisco network, all of my servers and storage, or a big portion of that. If you had taken the 2080 approach at that point in time, it would have cost you $786,000 for that same amount of equipment, that inventory list that we went through earlier, which would have saved you $2.1 million. And then fast forward to today. Everybody wants to go full wireless for their users. Mobility is out there. It's all software defined. So you still need to replace some of your infrastructure to support more wireless, more software defined. But again, the 2080 would have saved you $1.5 million. Everybody starting to get the picture? If you took an alternative approach 10 years ago, what would we have netted? Well, you would have spent 2.5 over that 10 years and saved $5 million instead of spending 7.6. And that's on that list of assets. Yours might be much larger or much different. Just our sample scenario. So what did you get? If you follow this secondary path by buying pre-owned equipment, it's already been through someone's IT environment, it's proven to work. It's like a used car. It's been refurbished and recertified. You buy an alternative to maintenance on that same equipment and your other at half the price. What would you have gained? You don't have as much downtime because you're not interrupting the environment to refresh it. There's no need to rip and replace and learn new interfaces and new products for your team. They can focus on other business relevant tasks and initiatives. You don't have to go through the whole process of paying a consultant to design the new architecture. How's your new environment going to look? And you don't deal with new bugs. So where you don't have to, don't put new equipment out there that's just going to break or have a bug or cause outage. You're dealing with something that's tried and true. There's been no new releases on it in a few years. It works. Instead, you get less work overall, less risk to your environment, less cost. You saw a $5 million savings, and you compromise very little. Your risk is not any more. It's the same, if not less. And you got an environment that's up and running and reliable. So this is the strategy we want you to think about today. Why doesn't everybody do this? Well, we think a lot of people haven't heard of it or haven't thought about it, didn't know that it was an option, especially in this crowd where you guys are supporting the technology teams predominantly. They're coming up with their requirements. Maybe now you can offer them, hey, have you thought about this? It's certainly not in the best interest of these large tech companies. And if any of you are in the room, I'm sorry for that. But it's certainly not in their best interest for you to think about stretching the life of these products longer. They need that constant income, the revenue from new product sales. It's their primary line of business. Finally, you get the best of both worlds. You can choose a hybrid approach that says, I want this much to be new, and maybe it's 40% or 60% new. But some component of your environment that leverages the right intersection between cost and risk and disruption that's right for your business and your company. So is this just our idea? Is it just something that Curvature came up with? No. This has been a growing momentum in the marketplace over the past 10 years. Gartner has recently put out a few papers on it. There was a market study done a couple years ago about these alternative secondary hardware and third-party maintenance are the titles of those. Then recently, there's a new paper out by Gartner. It's available on any of your accounts. And it walks you through the real impacts. At minimum, if you just look at the cost savings, there's 60% savings over what you're paying for today with the manufacturers, on average. If that's not compelling enough, I got a lot more reasons. But vendor consolidation is usually the second reason. This is the landscape report I referenced. Feel free to go look for it. It's saying everything that I'm telling you today and being validated by the analysts. And they're more than willing to talk to you about your situation and if this strategy applies. Let's talk about those value propositions before I get into these examples of what companies benefited from us. One, vendor consolidation is the number one I would offer to you guys. Instead of having to manage support contracts with 12 different manufacturers, the Dells, the EMCs, the HPs, IBM, Cisco, you can come to someone like us and have one single contract to cover your entire environment, one throat to choke, one number to call, however you want to say it. There's also leverage in that. You get financial leverage. Instead of you paying this vendor 1,000 and this vendor 1,000 and this vendor 1,000, you're paying 3,000 to one vendor and you get more leverage on discounts and renewal rates and all those kind of fun things. Thirdly, you get custom tailored solutions or service. Most of the manufacturers have a one-size-fits-all service offering because they have to. They have to deal with all the wide variants across the globe. We can offer you one that meets your business needs. Flexible contract terms, co-terminations, multi-vendor solutions, global, one different service level globally. Not one different, one unique service level globally. So how does that really pan out in real life for these customers of ours? You take a city government, 40,000 employees. We help them with their networking support alone, and they saved $500,000 on the initial purchase and $125,000 annually, which adds up to a savings of $1.8 million over 3 years. That's significant savings, especially for a budget-constrained public sector in today's market. They're able to keep things going longer for less money and redirect those funds to all of the new apps that their constituents want to use. This retail chain, so this is a lot of small box retail stores. It's a cookie cutter store in a box kind of setup. Well, we're able to help them deploy that equipment, manage it. It's used equipment. It's got third-party maintenance on it, and their operating expenses go down significantly. And then for a large pharmaceutical company, it's on a global basis. They're in India, they're in Australia, they're in China, they're here. They have a widely dispersed environment with servers and storage and networks everywhere. Just on their network alone, the first year CapEx savings were over $11 million. And we saved them over $1.3 million, 1.1, sorry, on an annual basis on their maintenance. If you look at that over a 3-year time span, that's about $14.5 million in savings. So I'm coming to the end of my pitch. The idea is simple. Take part of your environment, take a hybrid approach, use third-party maintainers, use pre-owned CarMax-style equipment, and free up your IT budget to do other things, like all of these new Internet of Things and virtual reality and machine learning. You're going to be forced, IT is going to be hit with that in the face. You have to have a plan for how you're going to free up budget to deal with those new initiatives. This is my shameless plug of us. We do offer maintenance across any of your environment, professional services to help you deploy, upgrade, maintain, or manage any of your infrastructure. And we offer secondary hardware, stuff that's had one life. We take it through a refurbishment cycle, thoroughly test it, and give you something that's a certified pre-owned piece of equipment.